ChatGPT, chatbot from OpenAI, is the fastest growing consumer application in history, reaching 100 million monthly active users just 2 months after launch. Is it just a novelty or there's a real value, especially for programming branch? And the question that crossed everyone's mind: will AI replace us? We can't answer that, we don't know. What we do know is that OpenAI, company behind ChatGPT, financed largest ever universal basic income study. Universal basic income, or UBI, is a social welfare proposal in which all citizens of a given population regularly receive a guaranteed income, independently of any other income. The amount should be sufficient to meet person-based needs, at or about poverty line. Sam Altman, current CEO of OpenAI, reckons AI should generate enough income to finance UBI, while opponents consider this to be an utopian endeavor. Idea of UBI is to quote Sam Altman, lift the floor of income and don't worry about the ceiling, and to cushion through dramatic transition. Imagine mixed feelings you'd have if you'd lose your job to AI, but on the other hand you'd also wouldn't need to work again. Lift the floor, don't worry about the ceiling, makes you think about the current global wealth distribution. Individuals with over $1 million currently constitute 1.1% of the global population, but hold 45.8% of global wealth. 11.1% of the population holds almost 85% of the global wealth. On the other end of the spectrum, 55% of the population owns only 1.3% of the global wealth. Even if AI makes minority wealthy, that really won't change current socio-economic state. There could be two sides to UBI. If a generation of people get paid enough to live that's sufficient for them and they never learn to do anything someone would pay them for, they are effectively dependent on government assistance. What happens when they don't comply? But on the brighter side, if you'd have your base needs met and could do anything you want, maybe we could pursue more creative endeavors and make a world a better place. If I could do anything I want, I still think I spend at least part of my time in tech. Seeing advancements like ChatGPT does make me excited. And I suspect you would too. It's not just our job, there's inherent joy in building something. So, on a global and personal level, things could change, but at the same time, they could still stay the same. To get back to ChatGPT, it's a language model that strings together words, chunk of words, or single characters, what it calls tokens, on basis of probability of what the next token should be. For what it is, when you think about it, it's pretty crazy what the outcome is when you feed it large datasets to learn and train it under human supervision. Let's see some practical examples revolved around programming. For reference, I'm recording this in May of 2023, and I'm saying this because some of the complaints I have might already be solved and I'm just not aware. Some might be solved in the coming days, weeks, and probably all will be addressed in the coming months. Let's first look at the ChatGPT strong side, when you want to learn about something. Where it shines in regard to traditional learning tools is it's able to give reasonable answers when you ask it to compare something you don't know to similar concepts you are familiar with. For instance, compare type system of Haskell to Java generics type system. What concept in React JavaScript library is equivalent to Angular? What are differences in functions definition in Oracle, PostgreSQL, and MySQL? I found that not only does ChatGPT gives reasonable answers, they are also ideal size, not trivially small, but also not overwhelmingly long. You are also presented with a couple of high points in answer, leading you to a path where you could inquire further if you have desired to do so. To continue, when you come to a new project, what's currently missing is the ability to just point ChatGPT to, in example, Git repository and have that be a context you base your questions on. Maybe there is a tool that can help with that. Let us know in the comments if you know of any. For instance, complex projects that have hundreds and hundreds of lines of GitLab CI/CD code. By pasting a large chunks of code into ChatGPT, you could get a reasonable information on what's going on in the pipeline. And then you could drill down into smaller parts, and not only do you get an answer on what the command does, but ChatGPT will also include the definition of flags if the command has any. Another thing I found useful is to paste the code with multiple ifs. Negations that are written with the exclamation mark you'd sometimes have to think about, but ChatGPT gives you a semantic answer of what the condition does. Thirdly, reasoning about regular expressions, where it also gives semantic answer. For example, here it told me that this regular expression requires valid email or a valid username. When you try to analyze harder problems with ChatGPT, I found the program breaks down a bit. For instance, we had a complex query running for over an hour. Given the query and the explain plan, which is a sequence of steps database management system uses to access the data, we asked ChatGPT to recommend a way to optimize the query. The answer we got was kind of generic and underwhelming, but the thing I was pleasantly surprised with was that it recommended to add indexes if needed, but also to check for excess of indexes that might be slowing the query down. In the example of on-premise service breaking down, we had original providers that would take generally some time to analyze and respond, so I've pasted the log of the service, and while ChatGPT did find a problem, its answer was almost convoluted as the original log. Regarding logs, when you use log aggregator service, for instance Graylog, I'd love the ability to feed the logs to AI tool and have it analyze it for suspicious behavior. Configuration files like Docker Compose, Spring Application Properties, Terraform, and similar configuration files, I found it can give you wrong configuration, but with the right structure. It's best to use it if you know what the configuration needs to look like, but you've just forgotten certain part and are able to correct mistakes ChatGPT gives you. It is sometimes faster than looking up information in documentation. For instance, I always forget in Docker container configuration does the exposed port in host comes before or after the colon. Asking even a dumbed-down version of the question, is exposed port first or second, ChatGPT gives the answer I was looking for. For testing, I found behavior similar as in configuration. ChatGPT gives correct structure for testing class, but makes slight diversions from what would be totally correct code. So it's so-so. When you know what you need to code, it's not worth switching context and maybe get the code you need, but when you need a starting point, it might be worth it. I'm expecting significant progress in the area in the coming months, but I think it's fair to say that all the fuss is not just about novelty. Tools like ChatGPT already have a high degree of usefulness in certain areas. We might as well hop on the train and make our lives easier. Not that someone cares if we don't, the train will continue on regardless. Happy prompting!